Hi, peace be with you. This is the Yahuwah World Peace, Truth, and Love radio show, and this show is about ending all racism, Satanism, and child abuse by speaking about world current events in the news with commentary from the Bible in English and Almighty Father Yahuwah's Torah in ancient Hebrew. So we're going to begin by showing news video clips and also some various other video clips, and then we'll continue with Yahuwah commentary afterward. Take care, respect.
Tonight, Pope Francis confronts the moral obligations of our time, from immigration to climate change. High praise for his American debut. Rapturous reception.
Good morning.
Quiet reflection.
You remind us that the Lord's most powerful message is mercy.
Good evening. There was no separation of church and state in Washington today. The Pope and the President talked politics and faith at the White House. It was a very full day. Adoring fans tried to swarm the Pope at every stop on his way through the packed streets of D.C. Pope Francis embraced babies, even stopped for selfies. He met President Obama in the Oval Office, then along with the First Lady waved to more than 15,000 people gathered on the South Lawn. This is American history. CTV's Joy Melvin has the details.
It's what they've been waiting for, to get up close and personal. Later, he addressed the child sex abuse scandal that has rocked the church. Francis called it a crime that will never be repeated. Disappointed survivors say that's not enough.
And
the need of the church to apologize. I think the Pope understands that.
And in an elaborate mass, his first ever here, Francis canonized a controversial California missionary that some say was no saint, building Catholic missions on the backs of native people. It's been quite a remarkable day for this Pope, historic, spiritual, tackling issues that deeply divide Americans, and yet he asked them to open their hearts and face the challenges of our time, Lisa.
It was a powerful day. Joy Melvin in Washington. Pope Francis will make more history in the U.S. Capitol tomorrow when he becomes the first Pope ever to address the U.S. Congress. There markets today, the TSX and Dow were both down. The dollar dropped briefly to an 11-year low, ending the day at just under 75 cents U.S., and the price of oil dipped to $44.48 a barrel. Tonight, for the first time, all 5 federal leaders on one stage with one focus: voters in Quebec. The kneecap, sovereignty, and the economy.
Ma position est très claire.
Full team coverage of the French debate. Good evening. Canada is a nation of competing regions with conflicting desires, but still a place where the center holds. Tonight, though, in the first French debate, the center began to creak on some provocative issues. It all happened in Quebec, the province that may hold the balance of power between a majority and minority government. 5 leaders were invited, making for a somewhat awkward group handshake to kick off what may be the only debate taking place in front of a mass TV audience. With more on day 54 of this 78-day campaign, here's CTV's Laurie Graham.
This is a papal visit with prisoners and survivors of sexual abuse.
the Lord will be with you.
Adoration and apprehension on the final day of the Pope's American tour. Ottawa tonight. Now to that secret recording of Justin Trudeau, where the Liberal leader talks about the rights of convicted terrorists and accuses the Conservatives of making good behavior a condition of Canadian citizenship. CTV's Laurie Graham has our exclusive report.
Liberal leader Justin Trudeau left Ottawa this morning for another week of campaigning. But even before the election was called, Trudeau was conducting town halls across the country. In July, he tweeted about the great discussions in Winnipeg. CTV News has obtained a recording leaked by the Conservative Party of Trudeau's answer to a question that day about C-24, the law that allows some dual citizens to be stripped of their Canadian citizenship. Trudeau started his answer by mocking the Conservatives for what they've said about him.
The Liberal Party believes that terrorists should get to keep their Canadian citizenship. Because I do. As soon as you make citizenship for some Canadians conditional on good behavior, you devalue citizenship for everyone.
But the condition, according to the bill, is not about good behavior, but whether the dual citizen has been convicted of terrorism here or abroad, convicted of treason, spying, or armed conflict against Canada.
And Mr. Trudeau's position suggests that he really doesn't value Canadian citizenship. If you can take up arms against this country, join a terrorist organization that wants to commit mass violence against your fellow citizens, as I say, you're forfeiting your own citizenship.
Trudeau also told the group revoking a terrorist's citizenship is not the answer.
They end up locked up in jail for the rest of their lives.
But one member of the Toronto 18 convicted of being involved in the plot to bomb the city has already been paroled. Another is eligible for release next year. His citizenship has been revoked. Others are facing the same fate. Canada is not the only country to revoke citizenship. The United Kingdom, Australia, and France have all passed similar legislation. NDP leader Tom Mulcair is also opposed to C-24.
What if it's bank robbery? Or what if they just don't like the country that you're from and they want to send you back?
Tonight in a statement, the Liberals wouldn't comment on the specifics of the audio recording and said their leader stands by his position that convicted terrorists belong in prison. Sandy.
Laurie, thank you. CTV's Laurie Graham in Ottawa. Well, Tom Mulcair was the only party leader on the campaign trail today, and he took aim at polluters as he unveiled the NDP's plan to combat climate change. At a rally in Toronto, Mulcair promised to put a price on carbon and to set limits on greenhouse gas emissions.
We will create a pan-Canadian cap and trade system with hard limits on emissions for Canada's biggest polluters.
Mulcair is promising to work with the provinces and says if elected, he'll reveal more details at the Paris Summit on Climate Change in December. Well, free watching and cheering has ended for Americans. Pope Francis has wrapped up his U.S. visit and flown back to the Vatican. Before he left Philadelphia, there were more massive crowds and personal moments, including time spent with prison inmates and victims of sexual abuse. CTV's Joy Malbon is in Philadelphia.
This was the main event. Pope Francis celebrating Mass before hundreds of thousands, a spectacle of sound and color. An army of clergy passing out communion on the locked-down streets, a celebration of family and of faith.
Pray for me. Don't forget.
Overcome with emotion, Rosa Anna Gonzalez left the church 6 years ago.
I am completely overwhelmed. My heart is filled with, I can't describe it. It is joy, it is happiness, it is being found again.
Many say it's this Pope inspiring and uplifting them with his simple message of compassion. From consoling prisoners, Francis blessed suspected killers and mobsters at Philadelphia's largest prison, to trying to soothe the suffering of victims of child sex abuse. In Spanish, he warned his bishops publicly it's their job to protect the innocent.
God weeps. Los crímenes y pecados de los abusos sexuales a menores. For the sexual abuse of children.
Meeting privately with survivors, the Pope told them he's deeply sorry, promising the guilty will be punished. Some victims groups were unimpressed, saying they've heard it all before.
It's never going to be, for everybody else, it's never going to be enough because, you know, their children are hurt.
There's also a lot of love for the Pope of the people, doing a few laps here and there in his open-air Jeep. Some people will do just about anything for a blessing. His mission of mercy and hope has been a marathon, and with one last benediction,
God bless America.
He heads back to Rome. Pope Francis leaves behind strong statements on saving the planet, immigration, and the importance of family. What effect it will have on Americans is an open question. But for a time, Sandy, he definitely had their attention.
All right, CTV's Joy Malvin. Thanks, Joy.
World leaders today at the United Nations to strategize against the terror group ISIS. What they found out isn't very encouraging. After a year of intense U.S.-led bombing campaign, the jihadi ranks are growing.
Now, I have repeatedly said that our approach will take time. This is not an easy task. There are going to be successes and there are going to be setbacks. This is not a conventional battle. This is a long-term campaign, not only against this particular network, but against its ideology.
Despite this commitment, they heard fresh and frightening numbers. An estimated 30,000 new ISIS recruits, twice as many as a year ago, from 100 countries. 5,000 have Western passports, including 250 Americans. 50 are back in the U.S. U.S. forces were also dragged back. TSX climbed 32 points, while the Dow Jones was up 47. The loonie continued to lose ground, falling to 74.53 cents U.S., and oil was up 80 cents to 45.23 a barrel.
And the TPP is the TPP. U.S. President Barack Obama chaired a special meeting at the UN and asked world leaders, what should we do about ISIS? How do we defeat them? Obama himself argued that ideology is not defeated by guns, but with better ideas. Andrea Mitchell has more.
ISIS is winning. A year after the world came together to combat the terrorist group, no one has answers, and that includes the leaders at a UN terror summit today.
Now, I have repeatedly said that our approach will take time. This is not an easy task. There are going to be successes, and there are going to be setbacks.
The numbers tell a frightening story. An estimated 30,000 new ISIS recruits, twice as many as a year ago, from 100 countries. 5,000 have Western passports, including 250 Americans, 50 of whom are now back in the U.S., say congressional investigators.
Every one of them present a ticking time bomb. What keeps me up at night are the ones that we've missed.
The jihadis' ranks are growing despite thousands of U.S. airstrikes. Recruits drawn to sophisticated ISIS online videos like this one, aimed at Westerners.
I originally come from Canada.
It could be a travel ad for Canada, but this video has slogans like, Mujahideen are regular people too. ISIS also attracts followers by publicizing its extreme brutality on social media, posting videos of American hostages, James Foley, Stephen Satloff, and Peter Kasich being beheaded, and advertising the death of American aid worker Kayla Mueller. The danger ISIS poses is one issue Barack Obama and Vladimir Putin agreed on last night, but not what to do about it.
I had a chance to talk with President Putin at the end of the meeting. Look, this is not easy for Putin. Everybody says, oh, Putin's made a big move. Well, Putin is there now. And if he wants to fight ISIL alone, that's a challenge, folks.
On the surface, it may not look like much, but it is what's on the surface that has scientists excited.
Mars is not the dry, arid planet that we thought of in the past.
According to NASA, these dark rivulets are salt water. Frozen water was discovered on the red planet back in 2008, but this is the first time that officials have found H2O in liquid form.
These are dark streaks that form in late spring, grow through the summer, and then disappear by fall. However, for 4 years, the scientific community has been unable to explain the waxing and waning of these dark streaks on the surface.
Where the water comes from is still unknown, but its very presence means that some form of life could exist.
This is tremendously exciting. We haven't been able to answer the question, does life exist beyond Earth? But following the water is a critical element of that.
The thing about life on another planet is there's no reason to think it's anything like what we have here, and so that makes it very hard to look for.
Dan Riskin, host of Daily Planet, says presence of water could also mean big things for future human exploration.
Any human setting up a colony on Mars has access to water. If you have water, You have water to drink, you have oxygen to breathe, and you have hydrogen that you can use as jet fuel. So that's a really, really big deal.
So far, scientists have only been able to map about 3 to 4% of Mars's surface with high-resolution software. But now they have a better idea of what to look for and where.
Water is a big part of Mars's story. It's a big part of its past. And the question was, is there any on the surface anymore, or is that all done? And now we find out today that water is still part of Mars's present. So what the future holds is anybody's guess.
On major international issues also took place at the United Nations General Assembly today in the most crucial meeting in recent memory. Syria, Iraq, ISIS, refugees, and no agreement on how to solve the problem. Longtime rivals Vladimir Putin and Barack Obama shook hands before holding a private 90-minute meeting of their own. This was the first time the Russian president appeared at the UN in more than a decade. The two leaders found themselves in the same room a few times today, but they couldn't find was much common ground. Here's CTV's Washington Bureau Chief, Paul Workman.
President Obama offered to work with Russia to end the fighting in Syria, even as he made it sound unlikely and distasteful.
The United States is prepared to work with any nation, including Russia and Iran, to resolve the conflict. But we must recognize that there cannot be, after so much bloodshed, so much carnage, a return to the pre-war status quo.
Russia's aggression in Ukraine, its support for the Assad regime in Damascus, both cited by Obama as flagrant examples of Russia undermining international law.
I lead the strongest military that the world has ever known. But I stand before you today believing in my core that we, the nations of the world, cannot return to the old ways of conflict and coercion.
Russia has moved warplanes and tanks and artillery into Syria, its military support now visible on the ground. With Vladimir Putin today urging the U.S. to join a coalition supporting Assad in the fight against ISIS. It would be an enormous mistake, he said, not to cooperate with the Syrian government. Words pretty much echoed by Iran's President Hassan Rouhani, who signed a landmark nuclear deal with the U.S., but is now Russia's newest ally in the Middle East. It all made for an awkward day, Putin arriving 20 minutes late for a UN luncheon, sitting at the same table with Obama. The two leaders met again later, sharing another terse handshake before their first face-to-face talks in 2 years. When it was over, Putin described the meeting as useful and frank. He also said, Lisa, that Russia would never commit to a ground operation inside Syria.
Interesting body language tonight. Paul Workman in Washington. Thanks for this. 600 prisoners. Here are the business numbers. The TSX fell almost 374 points, while the Dow lost nearly 313. The loonie wound up at 74.66 cents, its lowest close since June 2004. And oil fell to 44.43 a barrel.
Into the UN after a diplomatic, military, and PR blitz to seize the initiative from the U.S. that left the White House scrambling. Obama wants Syrian President Assad out. But Putin said without Assad, ISIS would take over, insisting it's an enormous mistake to refuse to cooperate with the Syrian government and its armed forces, who are valiantly fighting terrorism face to face. Obama scornfully rejects that argument.
In accordance with this logic, we should support tyrants like Bashar al-Assad, who drops barrel bombs to massacre innocent children.
Obama and Putin's icy relationship is being called a new Cold War, not just over Syria, but Ukraine. Obama slapped sanctions on Putin's cronies for supporting separatists there. Today, Putin arrived 20 minutes late for the UN lunch, sitting so close to Obama they had to shake hands and couldn't avoid the toast. This is not Reagan and Gorbachev or Clinton and Yeltsin.
But this is not the Vlad and Barack show. No, it is not. And the fact of the matter is, it's a very business-like relationship. They've spoken on the phone over the course of those last few years, and they're very blunt and direct with one another.
Putin watchers say he sees every rivalry as a sports match, a contest he must win.
Putin always shows himself as a macho man. He's a strong man. He sees weakness and he seizes on it.
In the U.S. policy on Syria, he sees weakness. Just a handful of rebels trained at huge cost, and ISIS ranks growing. And when asked on 60 Minutes whether he thinks Obama considers him an equal...
Well, you ask him. He's your president. How could I know what he thinks?
tvnews.ca. An emergency meeting between the U.S. and Russia could take place as soon as tomorrow after Russia unleashed a massive air attack over Syria today. Moscow says it's only concerned with targeting ISIS, but there's concern tonight they may actually be bombing U.S. allies instead. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Paul Workman has that story.
Russia launched 20 airstrikes inside Syria, day one of its bold mission to save the Assad regime from crumbling. The Americans were given an hour's notice by a Russian general in Baghdad, of all places, and warned to keep out of the way.
That approach is tantamount, as I said then, to pouring gasoline on the fire.
The Russians hit targets near the city of Homs, profoundly complicating an already very messy battle zone and the skies above it.
This factor that you now have to account for. So you're not just dealing with Assad, who's been isolated. Now you have to deal with Vladimir Putin.
The Russians said they were targeting Islamic State fighters. That was widely contradicted. More than that, the strikes appeared to hit residential areas. Witnesses spoke of civilian casualties. Images on the ground seem to support that claim.
It does appear that they were in areas where there probably were not ISIL forces, and that is precisely one of the problems with this whole approach.
Russia says its air campaign is not open-ended. The country's foreign minister bristling with impatience today over U.S. objections.
Everything was said by the Russian Minister of Defense. Don't listen to Pentagon about the Russian strikes.
The Americans and the Russians are now bombing the same country, though with far different military goals. The fighting in Syria has suddenly escalated, Lisa, in a very unpredictable and risky way.
All right, Paul Workman on the Syrian crisis tonight. Thanks, Paul.
Hi, welcome everybody. Peace be with you. This is the Yahuwah World Peace, Truth and Love radio show. This show is about ending all racism, Satanism, and child abuse by speaking about current events in the news, uncensored, with the Bible in English and Almighty Father Yahuwah's Torah in ancient Hebrew. I'm the DJ, Yeshayahu Abi Yahuwah, the Hebrew Israelite Nazarite Nati Dreadlock, dark-skinned melanin man who speaks prophecy in the name of Almighty Father Yahuwah. The Almighty Father Yahuwah created the whole universe, and he created the earth, the sun, the moon, and the stars, and all humanity. And he taught his 12 tribes Israel people specifically to live with love and mercy. For he spoke to those people face to face, and he has always given them prophets so that they could help the people see Yahuwah's eternal truth, which is love and prophecy and healing and miracles all the time, so that we're always helping our neighbors with this eternal love. So the Messiah Emmanuel came to the earth to teach people about living with love and mercy, loving one another as you love yourself. And it doesn't matter if you're black or white, since the dark-skinned melanin Messiah, he also spoke to Gentiles and he healed Gentiles as well. So anyone can be a disciple of the Messiah Emmanuel, whether you're black or white. It's about how you live with love and how you love the Almighty Father Yahuwah with all your heart, mind, and soul, and how you help your neighbors and so on. So why I'm saying this is because this show is about spreading that message of Yahuwah out with Yahuwah prophecy, healing, and miracles of the holy word of Yahweh. And you can see in this world that what people have voted in and what people have asked for, they're getting what they deserve. And you could see as well that when it comes to the church, that the Pope is meeting with politicians instead of spreading the message of the Bible. And he's promoting politics, which is blasphemy as well. And you can see with politics that these two groups are doing illegal works, as Putin said, and at the same time they're shaking hands and agreeing on other matters. And then you can see that there are politicians that are being called racist, and then you could also see there's child abuse that's happening inside the government and police and army, and at the same time there's pedophilia inside the Christian Catholic Church, The Pope is admitting it, that it's higher than 2%, and that it's including all of the bishops and cardinals and all of the Christian Catholic schools throughout the world, no matter what denomination, with the teachers and the charities and all of the affiliated organizations thereafter. And another example of this, of how it even extends into Hollywood, with the Hollywood celebrities and entertainers, is the family of 19 Kids and Counting. They were also caught up in a pedophilia child sex scandal as well. And then another Hollywood example of pedophilia being exposed is there was the actor on the show Seventh Heaven, where he came out and admitted that he himself molested a girl as well. So there's a lot of this going on. It stems from all of these groups into Hollywood. It extends into the government, as you saw with that news article picture, that there was child abuse. That included starvation. It included the boy having to pee on himself and also drink his own urine, and other sorts of horrific abuse went on. So you could see this is where all this stuff stemmed from, and that is why we showed the news articles in the beginning about how the Pope, he only spoke about the child abuse. He did not bring in any new laws. He did not help the victims in any other way other than trying to apologize. And you could hear in the news article video in today's show that the victims were saying that they do not accept the Pope Francis apology when it comes to the child abuse, and that they were saying that what's happening now in the Christian Catholic Church and how the Pope Francis is responding, the victims said that that is causing them further harm and traumatization. So the victims of the child abuse inside the Christian Catholic Church, they're not being helped, and nothing is being done either by the Pope or anybody else inside the Catholic Church to help these victims to lead a better life and so on. And why that is because what they're doing in Christianity as a whole is fake. And to show this furthermore, one resolution that would help would be if the victims of child abuse in the Christian church would be allowed to be put on a panel of people that are a part of putting out convictions and discipline and punishment toward people who break the rules when it comes to pedophilia and child abuse inside Christianity. That way it would be ensured that violators of those rules who hurt children and who hurt other people therewith, they would be punished for those crimes. So that's one way that they could help when it comes to that. But as you can see, that's not happening. So that's one proof that the Christian church is fake. And another proof is that it's written in the Bible that there would be a false church and a false congregation. So since in the book of Acts the disciples only spoke Hebrew, when the Bible was written in 300 AD and onward, it was written as a translation. So when we say it was written in the Bible, originally it was written in the Torah in Hebrew, and it was spoken orally through the traditions in Hebrew, because that is the language of the 12-tribe dark-skinned melanin Hebrew Israelite family. So when it comes to how the Messiah prophesied that there would be a false congregation and that it would sit on 7 hills, just like how the Vatican sits on 7 hills, this is the prophecy of the Almighty Messiah Emmanuel Yahuwah. For Emmanuel is prophesied in Isaiah 7:14. So you could see through the Almighty Father Yahuwah, he sends prophets to his people to help us for eternity, so that we live with love, peace in our hearts. So the Christian church is not a part of that. They are on the outside. They are the people that are living in sin. So we're proving this with Bible, Torah, prophecy of Almighty Father Yahweh. And we're showing it with facts today that are being shown from news articles and so on, and real life experiences. So you can see that the Christian church is fake because it has been prophesied in the Bible and Torah by the Almighty Father Yahuwah through the Messiah, Emmanuel Yahweh, who is the King of 12 tribes Israel, the one King of 12 tribes Israel. Since from when the Messiah came to live on the earth, there would be no king or leader after the Messiah, Emmanuel. For that is the teaching, and that is what we are told to live when we honor the Almighty Father Yahweh with all our heart, mind, and soul. The Messiah represented that spiritual lifestyle with the Almighty's Holy Spirit, where you spread out the Holy Word with healing, miracles, and prophecy. So this is why the Catholic Christian Church is fake and Christianity is fake, because the 10 Commandments say not to translate the word of the Almighty Father Yahuwah, because doing that is using his name in vain. And furthermore, in the Old Testament, when the Israelites were leaving out of Egypt, they were told never to act like any of the surrounding countries around them, never to act and to copy what those people say or do. Because he said if you do copy them or emulate them, you will end up worshiping their pagan gods and their pagan lifestyle afterward, which is idolatry. So this is where the teaching comes from. When we say Christianity is false and fake, it's not about black and white. It's about the teaching of the lifestyle of the Almighty Father Yahuwah for the 12-tribe, dark-skinned, melanin Hebrew Israelite family. Now, we know from that 12 tribes family, they have Jacob and Esau, and that they also have Cain and Abel. And it is from these parts of the heritage that later on in life, through migration and other factors, that in humanity, the dark-skinned melanin family produced later on a lighter-skinned, white-skinned humanity from that branch. And you could see that it is also written in the Bible that that took place. And you could see as well that by the time of the Messiah, there were Greco-Roman government in Jerusalem and so on. So this is what it's about. It's about how you live. So when the Messiah Emmanuel helped Gentiles, it's because he's showing that to help your neighbors transcends black and white, and that true love is of humanity. So this is what the teaching really is. So when we say Christianity is false and fake, it is because it is prophesied in the Bible, and it is also because what Christianity says and what Christianity does goes against the traditions that are written in the Bible and in the Torah for the 12 tribes Israelite dark-skinned melanin family. So that is what it is about. And you can see today, furthermore, to show how it is fake, that everything in North America specifically and in Europe is mostly done by Christian governments. The settlers of North America, they came under the European royalties. The European royalties are royal under Christian heritage. The Queen of England and all the other royalties of Europe, they swear their royalty and kingship under Christianity's church. So this is why the Christian Catholic Church with the Vatican and all the denominations are tied in with these royalties and are tied in with politics, because the politicians are the servants of the royal families and so on. And this is why the Queen of England is the head of state of Canada and of the United States. And to show that for Canada, the monarch, the Queen of England, is on Canada's currency. So that shows how she's a part of the political ruling class. So another proof of that is that they have a Governor General to the Queen that is a part of the Canadian Parliament as well. So this is proof that all of these groups are intertwined. And then furthermore, with Judaism, or with the synagogue of Satan, as they are spoken of in the book of Revelation in the Bible, and also with the groups that are associated with Islam, Christians, the Judaism groups, and the Islamic groups, they are all a part of Freemasonry. And as you can see, politicians as well are also a part of Freemasonry. And Freemasonry, as people know, if you research it, it is tied into the occult, it is tied into pagan sorcery, and it is also tied into things of voodoo and so on, and pedophilia and child rape and abuse, just like those Boy Scout groups, because they're also a part of Freemasonry with those charities that they do. This is where all the abuse stems from, because the traditions that they follow come from the pagan immorality that is spoken of in the Bible and in the Torah, for how we're not supposed to live if we're disciples of the Messiah or we're a part of the 12 tribes Israel family. So this is what is happening in the world. People have voted in and allow the Christian church to be, and they also have voted in and allow politics to continue on as well. So people are getting exactly what they want, and at the same time, you could see that with the war on terrorism in North America, because the settlers were Christian, all the laws only pertain to the people that are a part of that Christian political family. If people are not a part of that Christian political family, the laws do not apply to them. And this is why you could see that in North America, the way money works, only the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And that is where that stems from as well. So when it comes to the war on terrorism and other wars throughout the world, you can see that it is all propaganda, because we have shown that all those religious groups are all a part of Freemasonry and politics. And we have also shown that through Yahuwah prophecy, that it has been prophesied that there will be these false leaderships and false wars that entrap the people and keep them distracted from living with true love of Almighty Father Yahuwah in their heart and helping their neighbors with peace and love and miracles and prophecy and so on. So with the war that is happening in Syria as well, you could see that Russia and America are working together. They're shaking hands on it. Although Russia is saying that USA is doing illegal works, you can see that they're shaking hands and they're agreeing and doing other things together. So for civilians, people are not allowed to do things illegally at any time and continue onward. But you can see the politicians, they're always accusing each other or even charging each other with illegal works, and then they're able to continue onward. So this is why I said the laws only pertain to those people that are a part of that royal ruling class and political class. And as people know, all the presidents, they're all related to the Queen of England as well when you check their genealogy, and a lot of them are related to each other with the blue blood family, quote unquote, as it is referred to. So with this whole war on terrorism, it extends into those other groups such as Judaism and Islam because of this blue blood family. The Queen of England is known to say that she is related to many people throughout the world, whether they are black or white, going back to Cleopatra and other people throughout history. So all these marriages and all this stuff, that's what it leads to with these families protecting themselves. So with this war, you could see that a lot of civilians are dying, because when these ruling classes have infighting and they're using the infighting to convince people politically that things have to shift this way or that way, you can see that it causes innocent civilians to die by explosions and also with the chemical warfare as well. And then because they need to tighten things so that they can have more oppression, they're talking about taking away citizenship and other things. So everything is about having people work the 9 to 5 so that they're distracted and not able to help their neighbors. When we already know that Canada and America, they have enough money to pay off all of their debts because they can use the money that's in their national reserves that come from the national resources off of the country. Canada and America, for example, both have enough money to do that. It's already been explained, but because they're using international banking to even the playing field so that there's world economics, which is false because they just control the numbers and make it go up and down, and then with interest they overcharge. So basically, they have a false money system since the countries borrow more money than they can repay, and they're not using their reserve money to pay back their debts. So that's why it's a slave cycle, since when they borrow too much, they can't repay. There's not enough money in circulation to pay it back. So this is why we're showing these news articles of the war, because it's showing how innocent civilians are dying because of this political, satanic game that is going on in the world that was prophesied in the Bible Torah of Yahweh. So Almighty Father Yahweh will heal the world with peace, truth. Hallelujah.